All right. I was going to say I'm not sure what time we should start, but I think we will go ahead and start now. Thank you. My name is Ann Merrihew. I run enterprise education for Amazon Web Services. I'm so pleased to see all of you here. I'd love to know how many of you come from the education vertical. Wonderful. It's also nice to see that there are some of you who do not. I believe that we have a lot to share about how we work with enterprise adoption, not only in universities, but just overall. This is something we hear from our customers often. We're interested in the cloud, we know we want to get there, but how do we move our enterprise there? Today we have two different universities, one university, one community college, that are really making strides at approaching their tactics for enterprise adoption and how to really understand what works for them. As many of you know, especially if you're from the education industry, there's no one size fits all. There's no cookie cutter view for this. This is all about being able to meet your individual needs. One university may have 27 different CIOs. They may have all sorts of different projects they're working on, whereas another may say, we need some analytics and we need to understand how to get in to use that now. So I'm really pleased to have both Cornell and Ivy Tech Community College here today. And I'm going to just do quick introductions. The way that we're going to do this is we're going to have Lige Hensley, who is from Ivy Tech Community College, speak first. After that, we'll have both Bob Carozzoni and Sarah Christen speak from Cornell. Hold your questions. We'll do some questions and answers after you can hear both perspectives on how they've been able to move towards AWS and how they've been able to have adoption at an enterprise level. So I'm just going to ask if we could close the door in the back just to keep the noise down a little bit. That would be helpful. Great. Thank you. All right, Lige, I'll let you start first.
All righty. Here we go. Hi, my name is Lige. I'm from Ivy Tech Community College, which is based in Indianapolis, Indiana. I'll be talking a little bit about how Ivy Tech has implemented Redshift and how we use Redshift for big data analysis and predictive modeling. So I'll tell you a little bit about Ivy Tech. I won't read this to you because only my kids enjoy that anymore. But the nuts and bolts of this is we're a pretty big organization. As you can see up there, 138 some odd locations, 24,000 desktop PCs. All of that's managed by about 165 staff. Truth be told, most of that staff is for those desktop PCs. But the important thing to note up here in regards to what we're doing with Redshift is the 100 millions of rows of data generated daily. And that's not an exaggeration. We literally generate 100 million rows of new data every single day across our enterprise. The vast majority of that data is student-related in some form or fashion. So the challenge that Ivy Tech had was really our existing reporting environment was inadequate for our size. We used a vertical SIS-based reporting system that really only used our SIS data. And that was really only literally 1% of the data that the college generated. And so what we had just didn't scale to what we needed. There was certainly a large business need to understand all of our data. Ivy Tech is spread across the entire state of Indiana. From our physical location perspective, we have students all over the world, literally, and in all 50 states. And so we had a big need, and we still do have a big need to understand our data from a business perspective. And of course, our challenge and the goal of all higher ed is to improve the success rates of our students. And we believe that understanding our data will allow us to better impact that. And since we are a community college, our budget is very limited. And that's something that goes across everything that we do in the IT department. So what we wanted was a solution that was flexible enough to handle the variety of data sources that Ivy Tech has. We support well over 1,200 different software systems across the state, nearly 900,000 users. We have a tremendous amount of data, and we needed something that was going to handle all the different kinds of data that we have and handle it in a timely fashion. Sort of along those lines, it needed to be scalable. Our current reporting environment is vertically scalable. So if you want it to go faster, you get a bigger server. There's a point where you can't do that anymore. And we reached that point probably 7 or 8 years ago. And so we needed something that was going to be more horizontally scalable. The next thing we needed was something that had some performance with it. Our existing reporting system really was antiquated. We would have reports that would literally run for 2 or 3 hours at a time, and we needed something that was going to be much, much quicker than that to meet the needs of the business. So what we found is we went out and we did a lot of investigation trying to find something that was going to meet our needs, something that was going to scale to the way that we needed it. And there are a lot of big data vendors out there. I don't have to mention their names. You guys all know who they are, that have a lot of really great solutions. The problem with those really great solutions was they had equally as great price tags. All of them started at 7 figures and went up. Some of them, a couple of them even started at 8 figures for an enterprise of our size with the volume of data that we had. Needless to say, that was not going to work for us, and so we had to find something a little bit different. Everything that we found out in the industry just didn't meet our needs. Really, the budget was the biggest one. So here's what we did. After a lot of work and a lot of different beta programs with a lot of different cloud vendors, we landed on Redshift from Amazon AWS, and Pentaho is our solution. And I don't know if you're familiar with Pentaho, but it's a web-based reporting front end that we use. We call our solution Newt. It stands for new thing because we're very creative in our names. And that's the little Newt there. We had an intern draw that for us. The clicker's not clicking. Uh-oh. I think I've lost the clicker. Oh, there it goes. What we do with Newt is we feed data from a variety of our internal systems in real time, and that's an important aspect for our organization. Our existing reporting system was a one-night snapshot, a traditional data warehouse type system. We don't do that anymore. Everything now is real time. We have data flowing into the Newt system constantly all day long, and that's a very new thing for us. I'm trying. There it goes. We keep all transactions, not just snapshots, kind of back to what I said a minute ago, but we actually track every click every person makes in every single system across the board, which is a bit different than what you normally see. Come on. Okay, there we go. We allow not only connections and interactions with the system from Pentaho, but we also use Tableau, SPSS, and my favorite, Mathematica, for a more detailed analysis. So we allow a variety of tools to go in and hit the system to get data back out of it. Maybe a third time. There we go. Come on. Okay, every third click seems to work. So now we can deliver data quickly to our users in a timely manner on any device. So Pentaho, if you guys are not familiar with that, allows you to use a smartphone or a tablet to get data very quickly. A lot of great visualization with that, and we can get that to all of our users very fast, except faster than this. We also analyze data between transactions. Now, as I mentioned a bit earlier, we keep every single thing that happens. So for example, if a student were to change their name or get married or move 3 or 4 times, we keep every iteration of that data and that data as it's changed. It's not so important for a student changing their name, but it's really important when you start looking at things in your LMS system, for example, and I'll get in a little bit more detail on that here in just a second. There we go. So one of the things we do with all of this is we can use machine learning tools against our data to come up with predictive models and do some analytics to allow us to report on what's going to happen rather than what has already happened. And I'll talk a little bit about that if the clicker works. There we go. All right, well, it worked twice. So what we do is we use a lot of our historical data to run pattern recognition to identify students that need help before they need help. Essentially, that's what we do. So for example, in a 16-week term, we can run our predictive models against the student body, what they're doing, all the activities that they're doing that day and what they've done the previous few days, as early as 2 weeks in. And with a very high degree of accuracy, we can determine which students are going to pass that class and which students are going to fail that class 2 weeks into a 16-week term. And I'll get into the accuracy of that here in just a second. Oh, there it is. So our accuracy has ranged a bit from 62% accurate to just this last term, 81% accurate. We're never going to get to 100%, and we do realize that. But we're pretty happy with the 62 to 81% accuracy that we're seeing today. One other fun tidbit with that is we do not use grades in any of the predictive modeling that we do. We use the students' activities and their engagement with their class, with the college, with their cohorts, and the different cohorts they're in with their classmates to determine how they're going to do. And that's all based on the data that we're collecting and analyzing with Redshift. A couple other fun benefits that we've learned from this, and this one was sort of an accident, honestly, but we were able to identify patterns of fraud. So as a lot of schools, we have a fair number of online students. We have about 70,000, if I remember right, last term, online students, something like that. And some of the students are a combination, they're a hybrid, they're on-prem and also online, but we also have a lot of just online students. So using Redshift and some of the predictive modeling, we were able to find patterns of fraud that were happening with our online-only students. Again, it was a complete accident, and we kind of stumbled across it, but sure enough, those patterns are very real. They're right there, and by running some of this analysis in real time, as those registrations come in, we can flag them for financial aid verification immediately without a human ever being involved. And that's helped us in a number of areas. There we go. One of the other benefits is dramatically cheaper. As you guys probably know, Redshift and AWS is very much a pay-as-you-go. You pay for what you need. And so we can scale the environment to what we need it to be, and we don't have to pay for capacity that we're not using, and that's great for us. Again, our budgets are a lot smaller than probably some of yours. Another thing that we've done with this is we've used that same pattern analysis to look through our LMS system to find courses that maybe weren't designed as optimally as they should. We have something like 60,000 course sections every term. It might be 61,000. It's in that ballpark somewhere. So we have a lot of course content and a lot of people using the system. Using Redshift, we can, in some of the predictive modeling that we have, we can run through and find sections of course content that are confusing to users or students before we ever get feedback. And we take that information and we go back and we dive into those course sections. Let's say it's algebra. What part of algebra, why is this section of algebra getting so much more activity? Why are what we call churning? Why are students churning on this content? Well, it turns out it's confusing and nobody realized it. So we can actually use that to find sections of a course that are not optimal for the students and then tweak them to be more optimal for the students. Oops. So anyway, that's basically what we're doing. And good luck with this.
Thanks. So I have what I think is the coolest job in higher ed. I really lucked out. So my job as enterprise cloud strategist is to, I did not push anything, but that works. Is to scout out and try to find new, cool, innovative stuff, things that can be transformative to higher ed at Cornell, and then to bring it in and try to make something happen with it. And these days, since the best innovation is all really in cloud, thus our focus with cloud. And so we started, I started my focus on cloud by first stepping back and looking at our IT strategic plan, which really deliberately started with trying to figure out what IT should be serving at Cornell. Research, education, outreach, those are all part of our core mission. Information technology is not. Information technology is how we enable the core mission. And so our IT strategy is really, really clear that technologies like cloud, our strategy there is try to reduce the investment in IT that is not directly contributing to our mission and redirect those funds into things that directly contribute to research, education, and outreach. So cloud looked like it had an awful lot of potential to do that, to help us to save money on things that aren't core mission and to do really innovative things for things that are. We also, there we go, we also identified pretty quickly in the process of this initiative that there are a lot of risks and hidden costs and just transition challenges that we'd have to master. So I was allowed to create a competency center that's offered to campus as a free advisory service around cloud computing. And the journey that this put us on is mostly what I want to talk about here today. 4 years in, this is just a small sampling of the cloud services we have on campus. I think we've helped evaluate 400 or 500 cloud applications and services of all sorts. And about 100 of them we've contracted, and those are just the ones we in Central IT are helping campus with. For every one that we've helped, I suspect campus has got 2 or 3 more of that they've just found on their own. My little cartoon graphic makes it sound like there's an easy button and this was just a no-brainer, but in fact, the kind of transition challenges we dealt with, and if you're just getting started on this journey, you may stumble upon yourself. The top left there, the procurement folks, they actually have a really critical role that's aligned with core mission. Research grants that have any connection to federal dollars have to be able to survive an audit, or we could lose access to those kind of grants. So working with procurement was really critical to understand how our cloud adoption needed to be done to stay safe. And at the same time, there was a lot of innovation that we had to help procurement through. I think our first couple cloud RFPs included descriptions along the lines of the maximum size you can have for the truck you're going to deliver your IT service on. So we had to redo all kinds of paperwork in the procurement aspects, in legal contracts, IT security, risk management. There we go. The other thing we discovered very early on is a change in where decisions get made. It used to be when we were doing a $30 million major ERP component change, campus needed central IT very directly involved, but cloud has created sort of a bypass where business units can go right around central IT and go right to the vendor, and the vendor can bypass central IT as well. So we had a bit of an existential moment. We were trying to figure out what does it mean if we're trying to lead IT and no one's at the table with us. Sorry, you can't read the, it says slow IT is, slow central IT is, so we've learned we have to do things much faster than we used to pre-cloud. We have to be able to move at the speed of cloud. There we go. We've been finding that if we're not willing to stand on the ledge with the distributed units when they're about to take some risks, then it happens without our involvement. So we've learned to be a little more risk tolerant, and we've been putting a lot of effort up front into learning how to manage risk that campus is taking. Also learned that this consumer-empowered world for cloud requires us to rethink. We used to do these long requirements gathering sessions, and while we're still determining requirements, campus just went out and just bought a solution. So we've had to learn to move at the speed campus is moving. We've also had to learn to rethink some of the old traditional concerns. If you think about when you're doing a $30 million ERP component, if you've got numerous components doing the same thing, that's a lot of overlap, a lot of redundancy, a lot of cost. But in the cloud world, it's very inexpensive compared to in the old days. So having redundancy is a lot less concerning, and the example I usually try to bring to folks is at home you've got a broiler, a toaster oven, you might even have a bagel toaster, and they all do the same thing. So, but that's fine. To a consumer mindset, multiple services doing the same thing is micro-specialization if it does a little better for one thing than the other. I need some specialization here in this clicker. So we learned pretty early on that we had to try to, we still had a role in leading campus, but it was a different role, one that has a lot less to do with control and a lot more to do with coaching and brokering and enabling. And the resistance to cloud, we were surprised to find, was less from the distributed administrative units and the general community, and actually more of the resistance was from within central IT itself. So we developed a set of leadership principles for cloud that we've been, for the past 4 years, fine-tuning, and the short version is oh, these are all different too. It's really focusing on seeing things the way customers see them. It used to be that we could build relationships just up into the executive leadership and the business units, and that was enough. With cloud empowering people throughout the organization, we've had to learn to build relationships up, down, and sideways. And I've come to think that small is the new big. There's no patience in the consumer mindset for something that's going to take months and months to do. So we've learned to instead try to deliver small wins consistently and quickly. And you know, for as much as cloud has changed, cloud itself is going to get changed by whatever's next. So I've started spending a lot of time going back and constantly questioning the fundamentals. So this is my introduction to Sarah's segment. So we had a lot of success with software as a service early on. We've had a little success with platform as a service, but we've really been stymied with infrastructure as a service. And Sarah is going to come to the rescue here with her new Cloudification service. One quick little plug. Oh, it's not up there anymore. Good enough.
Thank you. All right, so as Bob said, we had been working at Cornell sort of with software as a service for quite a while and having quite a bit of success, but we hadn't really gotten into infrastructure as a service much until fairly recently. And my team, the team that I lead, has run the Quali applications on campus. So Quali is an open source built by Higher Education for Education consortium. So we build software with other universities. So the developers who work on Quali are people who are able to run Quali on premise, run Quali with the foundation, which is in Amazon, and then also help other institutions. So they tend to be people who can navigate the stack really well, the whole stack. And it turns out when you're making a move to infrastructure as a service, that's a really important skill. So last fall, a group of my developers came to me and they wanted to start a pilot. Can we put Quali at Cornell in the cloud? And so we started talking about what that would mean, and they sort of went off and did some investigation and came back within a week or 2 weeks and were so excited about what they'd found. They were excited about the automation. They were excited about the speed at which they could do things and the opportunities. They had all sorts of great ideas about what they could do. And so as a leader of a team, having people that excited about technology and what they're doing is just, it's amazing, it's cool. So they went back and continued working on this, and we started getting lots of calls from our campus partners. So people out on campus had heard what we were doing, and they were interested in also moving some of their applications to the cloud, and they wanted to partner with us. They wanted to make sure that we weren't reinventing the wheel over and over again and doing the same things over and over again, and they wanted to make sure that we were doing it with some consistency. And so that's how my Cloudification service, and you can't actually see the words Cloudification at the top of the slide, but that's how, oh, there it is. That's how the Cloudification service came to be. All right, so what is Cloudification? First and foremost, it's a partnership with our IT unit. So if you're from higher ed, you know that generally there is a central IT unit, and then there are distributed IT departments within each of the colleges. And historically, the relationship has been the central IT unit runs the data center, and we provision servers, we provision access to our campus partners. But Cloudification needs to be a little bit different because they don't need us anymore, and we're all learning together. So this is sort of an experimentation in this partnering with campus, and so that's one of the first things. Another thing that we learned very quickly is that there are lots of different ways to move applications to the cloud. We found that if you do the lift and shift, you'll see some efficiencies gained, and you'll see some cost savings. But if you take a little bit more time and refactor, if you take advantage of the automation, if you containerize your applications, the efficiencies gained are huge, and the cost saving is more significant as well. So we feel like Cloudification is sort of helping campus make that move, but making it in the way that they'll see the most efficiencies. We've realized that central IT must be the expert in these cloud services. We need to be the experts that the campus wants to work with. They want our help. They're coming to us because they want to. So we're sort of going with this mantra, which is enable, don't not enforce. So we want to be able to put the powerful, robust tools in the developers' hands and then be there to help where they need it. We are understanding that if infrastructure as a service isn't better with central IT, that campus will make that move without us. And finally, one of the big goals is to allow our campus technologists to focus on their differentiators. So central IT can focus on utilities and helping them run things in the best way that they can, in the most efficient way they can. And we should allow our campus partners to be focused on those things that make them special. So our agriculture and life sciences department, they build applications that monitor the greenhouses. Those are the things we want them to focus on, and let us take the utilities. But we have to figure out what those are as we're making this move to the cloud. So part of cloudification is also figuring out what those utility services are and what we in central IT can do to help. So as I go out and I talk on campus about cloudification and what we're doing, the biggest question I get is why? Why would we do this? We have a data center on campus. Why would we move stuff to the cloud? And I talk about two trends. And the first is a feature delivery. So if you're using Amazon now, you know that weekly there's new services being delivered. There's new technology. It's almost a full-time job to keep up with the new technology that's coming out. And so at that rate, we can't keep up with that in our data centers locally. We can't afford to. We don't have the staff. We cannot keep up with that. And that gap's going to continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger. The other trend is a cost trend. And I think there's automation in this slide, maybe. All right. I think that right now in this trend, we're sort of right at the cross. So sometimes I'll go and I'll talk with folks on campus and I'll say, okay, we're going to talk about moving this particular, oh, there it is, this particular application to the cloud. And somebody will go back to their desk and they'll come back an hour or two later and they'll say, look, I've done the math. I've sat down and we can move this application to the cloud, but it's not going to be any cheaper. And there's a couple of reasons behind that. First of all, they're not considering this whole concept of refactoring and taking advantage of the automation in the cloud. But the other is, I think we're right there in that cross point on this trend. Our data center is going to continue to go slowly up or stay the same. We're not going to have the new features, but the cloud costs are going to continue to go down. And so a year from now or 2 years from now, it's not even going to be a comparison anymore. The cost is going to be significantly different. So back in the fall when my team came to me and they were so excited about this new paradigm, this infrastructure as code, and they were explaining to me how everything changes with the cloud. Everything changes. And so the last 9 months have been sort of drinking from a hose for me, trying to understand what they're talking about. But I think it's a really important thing to point out. So infrastructure, traditionally, the way we support our data centers today, we create new servers, and we name them, and we keep them around for years and years and years, and we patch them and we fix them, and when they break, we fix them. So there's this new paradigm called Immutable Infrastructure. And this is a quote by Michael Bryzik, who is the CTO and co-founder of the Guild Group. And if you Google Immutable Infrastructure or Infrastructure as Code, you'll see lots and lots of presentations by him. But move fast and break things. So that's really exactly what they're doing in the cloud. So it's your infrastructure is disposable. You can bring something up and throw it away at very little cost. So as my folks are building things, they're building things with this whole concept of no persistence in their servers. A server's there today and gone tomorrow. It's 5 today, it's 2 tomorrow. There's no persistence at all. So they build their systems out of these building blocks. And when they find a flaw or they need to patch it or change something or whatever, they throw that away and they rebuild it out of the building blocks into whatever it is they need. So it's constantly changing. You don't ever change your server itself. You throw it away and start over again. And they've built the entire sort of development pipeline based on that philosophy or paradigm that you're not changing your infrastructure. So I would say that all of that is fun and exciting, but there's a big challenge. And the biggest challenge that I see, and I'm sure others have seen this as well, is there's sort of resistance to change. There are people who are having a hard time seeing their place in this new paradigm. And people are uncomfortable with that. So one of the biggest challenges, one of the things that I think is most important to focus on is how do we help people see, I'm going from what I do today to this new world where I do something slightly different, but I still fit in. So I like to sort of compare it to this game Frogger. And I actually brought this slide up, and Bob didn't know what it was. So maybe I'm the only person who played this game as a kid. But so you're this little frog on the log, and you're trying to get across the river, and you have to do so by jumping to the next log. And that's like moving to new technology. But if you stay on the log too long and your log drifts out of the page, then you lose your turn. So it's important to continue to stay up with new technologies. And I think it's also important to know that I think everybody recognizes that in any organization you're going to have the people who are super, super excited about change and and new technologies. And we're always going to have people who are really struggling to find their place as well. And that understanding that challenge is a big piece of this whole thing. So that's it. Oh, this is yours.
Oh, great. So this is just a plug for if you want to see more of the work we've done at Cornell regarding cloud and other presentations, you can check out my profile at EduCause. And last year, a group of us worked together to create a cloud strategy document that's on the eCar section of the library. This summer, we're working on a cloud architecture document. And I'm hoping we'll see more of Sarah's team's work in the document we're working on this year.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah, Bob, and Lige. I'd love to know, are there questions from the audience? You've seen two very different approaches for adoption, enterprise adoption. Any questions? Great. I think we've got microphones coming. Thanks.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
As a student that goes to a university that doesn't use the cloud, how are you expanding to new partners?
How are we?
Expanding to new partners, expanding to those universities, enticing them to use the cloud.
I think that's an Amazon Web Services question. Is that accurate? Because
No,
I don't think Cornell's worried about getting every other university or Ivy Tech.
For AWS education.
Perfect. I'm happy to answer that. So what's interesting about education is that it's a very tight community. People know each other, and if they leave one university, sometimes they pop up somewhere else. And what we're doing at Amazon Web Services is actually working across the nation with universities in every state. We're working, like Bob mentioned, there's a group called Common Solutions Group, CSG, that actually has been working on some fundamental white papers that can be shared with others. We have a team of people who are actually working across the United States with universities to ensure that they're getting access to information about the cloud and how to adopt more quickly. What's something that I'm very proud of, because I work in education, and I think all of us who come from education feel very strongly, education is actually leading the path in many, many ways with the cloud. This is not typical in every new endeavor, but with education, we're finding education customers see the value, and they're adopting very, very quickly. If you're interested in talking about your specific university, I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards, and we'll find out who we need to be talking there if we're not already, so that it can become a little more real for you. Mm-hmm. Great, Ryan.
Bob, as you kind of your point about sort of redundancy and sort of adding more services, sort of redundancy and adding services and kind of, you know, adding a lot more choice and not worrying about it as much. How do you handle sort of the perception of, you know, or do you have a problem with user confusion and sort of the you know, you gave me 5 different file sharing things. Which one ought I use? You know, why are you doing this to me? Just pick one, or people embracing the sort of the variety of change that you're offering them?
You know, we pondered that a lot, and I don't know that we've actually come up with an answer that's satisfactory in every way, but I'd have to say that we declared defeat when it was just obvious that campus was going to do a lot of different solutions that are in exactly the same space. So we effectively have sort of the central IT sanctioned application that we encourage people to use, and we have a matrix of acceptable use that says in box.com it's okay to store something that is university confidential but not in other things. So we do tend to drive a little bit of adoption by providing strong guidance on where you shouldn't store things that are sensitive. But at the end of the day, I don't think we've ever had any luck trying to rein in personal choice when it comes to cloud, because it's so inexpensive. If they can buy it with their purchase card, or in a lot of cases it's even just free, like Google Drive, then people are doing it. Have you guys had any luck doing otherwise, trying to steer consumer behavior?
So I think kind of Harvard, and I think we're kind of struggling with sort of this choice of, right now we've got the Google Drive and we've got some SharePoint. We've got, we're going to be giving everyone OneDrive, and we still have our local shared G Drive. And I know people are out there with Box and Dropbox, and so it's kind of that, do we declare defeat and figure out ways to sort of kind of get people to appropriately use those solutions, or do we need to do a better job of sort of marketing the existing solutions that we have, and sort of, kind of trying to drive adoption of that? And I think that's kind of this, is it a strategy of direction and education, or is it a strategy of sort of, let's kind of encourage choice, but allow it to be sort of a safer choice? Like you said, your users are taking risks, so you have to take the risks.
I think for IT and for business users, there's certainly more of an opportunity to try to get standardization, which actually just makes it easier for people to share things. But when you start moving to the academic side, a researcher in the lab of ornithology, their colleague isn't the person in the desk next to them. It's somebody across the planet whose specialization is very aligned with theirs. Right? So for our research community and a lot of our educators, they're going to use whichever file sharing or whatever tool it is, they're going to use the tool that their collaborators across the world are using. So there especially, I don't think we have a whole lot of help, a lot of luck in trying to enforce any kind of standards.
Lige, I have a question for you.
Okay.
So Susan, you talked a lot about the fact that you're going to have some people within the IT ranks that are going to understand and want to move forward. I guess those are going to be the frogs that are going to want to jump on the log, if we follow that analogy. And I'm just curious, Lige, with what you guys have done, really building out on Redshift, have you seen a lot of pushback within the ranks of IT as to the adoption of AWS, or what's that been like for Ivy Tech?
For us, no, not so much. I mean, we're very selective in the staff that we hire. We really only hire the top 2% anyway, and so most of the staff that we have they're pushing the envelope more than I am. And so in our environment, not at all. Usually they're the ones bringing new things to the table. Mm-hmm. And so for us, that really hasn't been an issue at all.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. All right, any other questions? Great, at the back.
Hi, this question is for Lige. Can you talk about the predictive analytics you're using, specifically around, I think you said you were using machine learning to identify course sections that are poorly designed. Mm-hmm. Curious about that, thanks.
We're doing, a variety of different things. We've got, we use a lot of Mathematica, mainly because that's my favorite tool, so I kind of force it upon everyone else. Although we do have some folks that are Python. We have a lot of Python guys in our shop that are using Python machine learning modules to do a lot of that. Really, I think the trick is to come up with a data set or feature set that the machine learning tools can use. I know Amazon has a machine learning offering they announced a couple months ago. We have not gotten into that one yet, mainly because ours was already working, and so we weren't going to rebuild it. But really, I think the biggest challenge is just coming up with a feature set that your machine learning algorithms can digest. It's easy to give it so much data that it goes out to lunch and never comes back. It's easy to give it data that it really is going to be impossible based on how that algorithm is designed to come up with features that matter. And so really, I think the art, if there is art in it, is coming up with a feature set that is designed such that your machine learning algorithms can digest it and give you meaningful results. That is probably the hardest thing. To be honest, the first ones that we did, I did by hand, and it took a really, really long time. And they were very accurate, but it took a really, really long time. And that wasn't very cost effective either. And so we actually went to the machine learning tools in order to get some more speed out of it. So I guess, yeah, that would be my advice, is come up with a data set or a feature set that you think is relevant. And then from there, I think the tools will give you back, information. It's very iterative. It has been iterative for us. We've had a lot of real good success and a lot of failures, and we threw the failures away and ran with the successes.
Any other questions? All right, so I think just the last question that I have, and I'd love to hear from each of you, is what advice would you give to a university or to a community college that's just starting in looking at AWS and moving to the cloud? Yeah, you go ahead, start.
I would say find those few who can be really, really excited about it and give them time to experiment and explore and figure out how things work, because that energy and excitement ends up being a really innovative way to help move the organization. And there's always going to be people that you have to bring along, but if you can get some people who are really excited about it and are able to show success, I think that's a big win, and it's helpful.
The only thing I'd add to what Sarah just said is take those people who are really excited about this and find colleagues at other universities to have them partner together. So much of the work we've done with cloud has gone well in large measure because we partner so closely with folks like Ryan. So other schools working together, we learn a lot from each other.
I guess from my perspective, it would be, don't be afraid to try new things. I think Henry Ford said that if he asked everyone what kind of car they wanted, they would all still have horses. And so we try a lot of different things. A lot of the folks that we work with are afraid to try new things, and we encourage that in our shop.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for your time today, and thanks for attending. I appreciate it.